I plotted my discussion when you told me you wanted to speak to me along specific highlights which I think speak to Aronda the way I knew him and his contribution. And I'll start by my description of him as I know him. Aronda was, as a human being, soft-spoken, unassuming, fiercely loyal to the hilt, to the commander-in-chief, to the country, to the institution he served, persevering, intentional and purposeful, and what marks him out mostly, indefatigable. Tireless, always working, like we say, kazi, kazi, kazi. So that's Aronda in brief. Speaking about his early life in service, he was mainly in the intelligence corps. That's where he broke his milk teeth, if I can say. I first came to know him when he was IO at CPS. And I think from there he moved to Air Force and PPU, and then later he rose to deputy head of the Directorate of Defense Intelligence. That time we used to call it DMI. Before he made his debut into command of the armored unit. That time we used to call it mechanized unit in Masaka. The context of his rise to leadership and to command is also interesting. He came in the footsteps of a few others who were clustered as intellectuals, because hitherto his coming and others that followed, there was this misconception that command was for the non-educated, and the educated were for staff work, desk jobs, because they didn't want to soil their sleeves. Intelligence, political commissariat, medical, name it. So he came in the footsteps of giants like a few intellectuals in command then. Tumwine was a pioneer because of history. The Tinyefuzas, Serwanga Rwanga, Jet Mwebaze, Sande Mukuru, and of course Mujisha Muntu. Those were the pioneer intellectuals in command. So he came with those perceptions when he entered command and at formation level. But truth be told, I think the commander-in-chief knows his people well and how to apply them and when. So I think he identified Aronda that early and thought he would double and do as well in command like he did in intelligence. Aronda was an interesting person, individual. In terms of demeanor, he had this slow demeanor, even the way he walked, and seemingly shy. Had this tired look, but don't be mistaken. Beneath that demeanor was a man of steel, if I can call him, and strength of immense proportions. And so it was that when he went to Masaka, he was going into the footsteps of a giant soldier, the late Kazini, fierce soldier. You can see the contrast. Kazini was the swashbuckling type of soldier, and Aronda was the reserved kind. The armored unit at inception was just a few APCs. There's a man called Bisaso who started it. And then later, Kano BSJ, short stint, and then General Kazini is the one who started serious building of that arm of the UPDF, both in terms of equipment and manpower. Training, training seriously, Kaburanjire, later Karama. So Kazini gave it the first beating and shape. And then Aronda came to consolidate. And I can't say all this without commending a few of the original tankists and people associated with that process. People like Brigadier Chaze, he still serves, Brigadier Sande, the current commander, Brigadier Manya, who was a field engineer, Brigadier Byanyima, the commander of the motorized infantry brigade division now, Johnson Tuonjeire, Elias Muhereza, Maleng. Those were solid people. And in all our campaigns that involved tanks, they made their contribution. And then they were followed by others. The next group, the generation of tankists included people like Semwanga and Omola and Kantinti and the others. So Aronda consolidated that process of building that arm up to the time when we came on the scene. In later years, people like myself and Mujira, who I took over from as Armored Brigade Commander, but that unit had been consolidated, so we found a strong foundation. And if you can speak about people who built the armored core of the UPDF, you can't fail to mention General Aronda, you can't fail to mention General Kazini. Sometimes people, when they are silent, nobody speaks for them, and I'm glad you are here to ask us about this journey. So I acknowledge him in that respect for consolidating the building of the armored arm of the UPDF, which now is a division after our new structure. And it had three elements initially. It had field engineers, it had APCs, and it had the tanks, mostly the T55 series. When we came later, we added the modern ones. But the foundation had been laid by people like Aronda. And Masaka is a good command to prepare people for leadership because it's a very interesting command where you hone the skills of people in terms of not just formation command, but also civil military engagement. And Aronda was a master of that. From there, of course, Iron Fist, and then later elevated to the position of Army Commander in 2003. The context of his arrival in that position is also quite interesting. He came at a time of great expectations, but also challenges, if I could say. Remember the perceptions I told you about? So, and then we were winding up in Congo, safe haven, and all the unfinished business there. Then issues of graft. That was at a time when we had just been through with the commission of inquiry of the Right Honorable Ama Mambabazi and Tinyefuza. Then we had image issues. We had the LRA active in the north. Karamoja was insecure. We needed to reorganize as a force building. So that's the context in which Aronda arrives on the scene. And he hit the ground running, like they say. Starting with force image, and then systems building, accountability especially. I remember at that time we used to run a cash-based system. Salaries were paid in cash, moved over long distances with all the temptations. Human nature is such that you get tempted. And you remember the stories of so-and-so paymaster has gone with soldier's salary. And then issues of strength, accountability. So Aronda embarked on the job of moving away from that system to the banks, so that soldiers get their money in the banks, and then in a way plug the holes that were taken advantage of in creating what we used to call ghost soldiers. And he did that and did it well. He started systems like Kirmis. Remember Kirmis, now it's a chieftaincy in the UPDF, to help in personnel accountability, among others. He dealt a lot in ensuring the quality of the rank and file of the soldier. Training. Initially, we didn't have enough capacity in that area, so we trained mostly for mid and senior leadership courses. We trained abroad, and lots of people trained in various colleges in Ghana, in Nigeria, in the US, in UK, in India, Tanzania, and Kenya next door. But in later years, he worked tirelessly to see that all those things and courses become domesticated by emphasizing the building of training infrastructure of international standards. And to his credit, we can mention the modernization of Kabamba. It's now a premier military academy. We offer degrees. Kaweweta, the recruit school. Senior Command and Staff College, the first cohort was under his watch. The NDC is the one who started the idea. I had the opportunity to be on the committee, steering committee led by General Jim Oesijire. So it came to fruition when he had passed, but it goes to his credit. SOFAD, School of Artillery and Air Defense, initially in Butiaba, now in Olilim. Karama, he improved. That one was started by General Kazini. He modernized with all the training equipment, simulators and all those things. Vihanga, NCO College, Jinja, name it. So he emphasized on training and training infrastructure. He also worked on force posture, and he shepherded the defense review, a program which gave birth to our national security policy, our national defense policy, and which also reorganized the force from single service to bi-service that time. Remember, we used to have only one service, the Army and the Army Aviation. So after that review, we had Air Force become a distinct service. We are now quadru service. We have added two more services, the SFC and the Reserve Forces. But that journey was started by the late General Aronda with luminaries like General Pecos Kutesa, who spearheaded the formulation of our defense doctrine and later the establishment, and supported by people like Major General Robert Rusoke, Major General late Benon Biraro, and even I think Lokech had a stint at Defense Review before he went to other things. So we salute those officers as part of that milestone of reorganizing our defense posture. Aronda also was passionate about force welfare and morale. And one of his monumental legacies is Wazalendo Sacco, which now is the biggest and most well-governed Sacco, if I can say. He gave undivided attention to the formation of Sacco, to the growth of Sacco, to the governance of Sacco. If there was anything close to his heart, it was Wazalendo. And thanks to him and comrades like General Kale and Viraro, they spearheaded the start of Wazalendo Sacco. Well, on Wazalendo, so I was saying one of his premier monumental contributions is the start of Wazalendo Sacco regarding the welfare and morale of the force. He pioneered that one with the comrades like General Kale, Kaihura, and the late Major General Benon Biraro. Even when you see on the first membership, those are the names that you see. So he was passionate about Wasako, about its governance, about its growth. I remember at one time, not many people had an idea of saving together. And it came at a time of a huge deficit in trust among the rank and file of collective resources and their management. So it took a lot of convincing to convince the soldiers to be part of Sacco and to contribute. I remember at one time we had a heated meeting in Jinja where the rank and file, who mostly constitute the AGM, were agitating for withdrawing their money. And at that time, the contributions were about 5,000 or so. And I remember him pleading passionately with them not to kill the Sacco in its infancy. And I think it was Major General Nyakairima who gave the example to convince the NCOs, who are the delegates for the soldiers, to ask the question, how much do you contribute? And then they said 5,000. So why do you want to withdraw your 5,000 and then you borrow me from my contributions? Because I think at that time the biggest contributors were around 100,000 or so. So why should you withdraw your money and then you want to borrow from? Because the idea was that we create a resource from where the soldier can borrow cheaply, cheap credit. So slowly, even senior leaders, there are a few I can't name, who are doubtful about Sacco and its prospects. And they were saying, we can't be part of this. But it took the persevering nature and passionate nature of a person like Aronda to mobilize for Sacco, and then ensure that it's not abused. That's how these steering committees and all were put together to oversee the functions and running of Sacco. And gladly, I can say Sacco has survived the tough waters. There was a debate one time when, some people with managing success, people were tempted to say that can we become a bank? Can we become a bank? But banks have different objectives. Banks are for profit. So that way we would have lost the founding principle of cheap credit for the soldiers. And such views would come, yes, we talk about them, but they would be defeated by the logic of the founding idea of Sacco. So Sacco is one of the monumental contributions to the welfare of UPDF of General Aronda. The second one was reviving the army shop. The army shop, we had the initial one collapse. If you remember, the one which was led by the late Brigadier Tadeo Kanyankore. Managing systems that time was not as streamlined as now, and it was mainly manual. And I think sometimes we judge people harshly, but the times were different. So those experiments were good, and I think it's good to acknowledge that we made a bold move to start, but of course because of the hitches of the times, they failed. But we picked lessons from that, and from the ashes of that initial attempt at army shop, we had what we have today. And I think the army shop has been modest in its ambitions, but it has served its purpose. And with the guidance of the Commander-in-Chief, we limited our ambition to dealing only in building materials. Cheap, affordable building materials for the rank and file. And I think it has helped tremendously the soldiers of UPDF to build homes. Other people are pushing for essential commodities, but we thought going cautiously is better than going into many things and then losing track. So that too, the credit for reorganizing it, for restarting it, and General John Mugume, retired Lieutenant General, who has shepherded it up to this extent, and the Midland Bitumbika took over. They did a commendable job. So that too goes to General Aronda Nyakairima. The other welfare monument, to his credit, is the referral hospital. It's not yet complete, but it has a lot of potential in terms of saving cost, but also affording the rank and file good treatment when they become sick. It will also serve the population because it's big, it has a lot of potential. It will complement Mulago. He started that idea, and we are about to realize his dream. That too goes to his credit. Aronda also spearheaded the beginning of, in terms of welfare, the beginning of that time. We were not yet ready, as we are now, of retiring people. Retiring people. There was a time when people thought you serve until you die. You serve until you die. That's why people would say, "Nitakufa kwa jeshi." So he started that journey of knowing that when you join, you must live. We had an attempt at it, pushed by donors in the early 90s, RIF 1 and 2, reduction in force. But it was not well done. And our people who were retired at that time suffered. So Aronda started the idea of retirement, but also managing veterans in a better way, And this included payment of the backlog of veterans. First of all, documentation of veterans, and paying their outstanding dues. This gladly later ended up in the addition of another docket to the Ministry of Defense, the docket of managing veterans. In General Tumine's photographs, if you landed on it, if the family can share about our journey, because photographs speak a lot about the times, and I think that's wealth. Gladly we are starting a museum, and memorials like this one will feed into that process of documenting our history, rich history. And then for those aspiring for command, the lesson we take from Aronda is service above self, perseverance, loyalty, dedication to work, discipline. Aronda was a teetotaler. He didn't take alcohol, he didn't smoke. So discipline, dedication, perseverance, loyalty, service above self is one lesson also we can pick from the legacy of the late Aronda. I want to salute him for his contribution. He leaves a rich and huge legacy, inspirational legacy, and we are glad that God gave him to us when he did. He served the longest as Chief of Defense Staff, 10 years. I think the next was General Muntu, who did 9. But it's not about time. It's not about time. It's also about impact. For all I know, you can serve a short time, but have impact. Like I said, he spent about 2 years at Internal Affairs, but he left with a bang. So, long or short, effect. What do you leave behind? So he served the most, but also he left resounding effect in terms of force building and contribution. And we salute him for that contribution. What I forgot is production. I don't know how you fit it in the flow.
Production and welfare.
Welfare, production. He was passionate about that one as one of our core functions, to be a productive force. not a parasite, parasitic force. And he revived NEC. He revived NEC. This NEC that you see has gone places is one other monumental contribution of Gen Aronda. So production. And then he also, in his wisdom, mainstreamed production in our activities at the high table of decision making by creating the chieftaincy of production and welfare. It used to be there, but he gave it new momentum. He gave it new momentum. Gave it new momentum.
Maybe where you leaders at the level of CDF that they should pick from the leadership styles of Gen Aronda.
I think what you can pick from Aronda is because we are different. We acknowledge that one. We are different, but what you can pick from Aronda is that element of persevering, but also presence. I forgot that one, presence. Aronda was a present leader. You ask him about anything about the force and he knew it. Present. You can say, some people say they have different styles. Some people are armchair. It's good to delegate. You know, the idea of mission command that allow subordinates to do their thing. Give them the resources and the task. Don't micromanage. Yes, he did that too, but he was present. Presence. That's one other thing that was outstanding about him. Be it in Karamoja, Aronda, be it in northern Uganda, be it in Addis Ababa, he's there. Be it about Sacco, he's there. And I think thanks to him and immense networking, it was through him that we first interacted with people like involving them in our circle. The Ramadan Gobis, bringing them into, also in a way, if I can say it, advertising them and their qualities to the world, And he was not just an internal player, but he also understood government and how it works in his quiet way. And rallying friends for UPDF. So, most outstanding quality, presence. If you are given a job, give it your full attention. Yeah. The personal things, Aronda was an interesting person. You know, like that personality, demeanor, would be misleading. Some people would think he was cold, but under this demeanor was a very warm person. But you needed to take time to touch his light chord. And sometimes he would call you, then he says, "What do you want?" You said, "But you called me here." Then before, as you go away, he said, "Okay, sit." So, and then he would enjoy football. The Premier. He had his light moments. And he had his conversational beat when he lit up. He had his conversational beat. You know, there's one time he told the story he used to joke a lot with the Commissioner General of Prison. their stories. I think the Rukunjiri things. And then he one time said they had a boy, a Mchiga boy who used to eat a lot. And that as they slept in school, he would go to put on this porridge. What do they call it? Eh? Eh. You know, he used to, in school, would had these coils. And you put it in the water, and then you... So he said, and people would wake up. He said one time we woke up, you'll burn us at around 3. Then the boy said, Kandi and Charlie, you know. He said, what? Kandi and Charlie. So he had his light moments, but you need to you need to scratch the surface, like I said. Under that tough demeanor, there was a light person beneath. Yeah.
Was the commission of prisons is a schoolmate or what?
No, but they used to have those fun times.
Yeah, because we are looking at the Yabashisha to give us. It would be good to give us that kind of things. Yes, we are looking at the human factor,
Human factor, the light moments. Yeah,
the light moment of the late Gen Aronda.
the other that comes to my mind was we were in Kiev. Kiev is in Ukraine. And people came knocking on doors. In the hotel we were, I was with him with Brigadier Chazi. So in the morning I asked, when we were in the lobby, but apparently for them they had been there many times, so they knew. So I asked, who are those people knocking on the doors? Then everybody kept quiet. Chazi laughed. I said, who are those people knocking? Didn't they bang on your doors? Then he says, did you open? I said, no. Okay, those are women of the night. So that came to my mind. So it came to my mind. It's something etched in my memory, you know. Yeah. Don't open. Don't open. Yeah.
Always, nobody would think he could crack
Yeah.
something.